Good morning, Mr. Mukherjee, sir. Good morning, Mr. Mukherjee, sir. This is Dr. Padmanabh Mahapatra, ASBM University.
Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
I am fine, sir. I am fine, sir.
I hope you can see me and hear me clearly.
Okay, sir. No problem, sir. It is perfect, sir.
Thank you.
Audible, sir. I will tell.
वीडियो
ठीक है आगे समस्त एंट्री कर जानते हाँ सर नमस्ते सर आज्ञा सर अपन सर जस्ट एटर सर क्लिक कर आगे कर एंट्री कर गोटे समस्त आसेम्बली
wearing, sir, Arun Khanna? Yes.
Am I
Hello, sir.
audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir, you are now audible.
Okay. Thank you.
Am I audible
Okay,
now?
sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mahapatra, am
Thank
I
you, sir.
audible now? Am I audible with my earphone?
आरंभ करियो कहबी सालिन को आरंभ करियो
सालिन को दी मिनिट छाड़ी
Sir, तो देखा जाए वीडियो रे?
जाको सार को देखाउ से सार को वॉइस तो जानि होनी वॉइस दियो के
मिस तो सर नमस्ते सर. Salini, let us start.
Honorable Chief Guest, Honorable Guest of Eminence, Distinguished Keynote Speaker, Respected President, ASBM University and Chairman, National Finance Symposium 2021, Respected Vice Chancellor, ASBM University and Vice Chairman, National Finance Symposium 2021, coordinators of the symposium, delegates, members of faculty and staff, and my student colleagues. A very good morning and a warm welcome to all of you to the inaugural session of the National Finance Symposium 2021 with the theme Managing Finance for Sustainable Future. I now request the coordinator of the symposium, Dr. Padmanabha Mohapatra, to introduce the eminent guest. Sir, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Salini. Honorable Chief Guest, distinguished keynote speaker, Honorable Guest of Honor, respected President, ASBM University, respected Vice Chancellor, ASBM University, co-coordinator of the symposium, delegates, members of faculty and staff, and my students. A very good morning and welcome to you all to this inaugural session of National Finance Symposium 2021 with the theme Managing Finance for Sustainable Future. Traditionally, the scope of finance was limited to a verb, financing the proposition. Later, it is added to the context as a noun, the judicious use of finance. Again, a new mantra is added now, sustainability. Would the present use of finance add sustainable value to the future business? Would it satisfy all the stakeholders with a substantial value in future? Would it be able to produce a sustainable balance scorecard? Both of our sessions will churn this Mahasagar, I mean the great ocean of finance, to retrieve new thoughts of nectar for a bright future life. In this program, we have three eminent stalwarts in the field of finance to address us. I feel extremely proud to introduce them. First of all, we shall visit to our respected chief guest, Mr. Harun Rashid Khan, the former Deputy Governor of Reserve Bank of India. Mr. Khan had his early schooling at Baragad High School in Bhubaneswar. He was a brilliant student. Although he studied in the vernacular medium, he regularly won the first prizes at state level debate and elocution contest in English, and was a multiple winner of the Governor's Cup for elocution. Mr. Khan obtained his master degree in political science from Utkal University. He then obtained Master of Philosophy from School of International Studies of Jawaharlal Nehru University. Mr. Khan joined Reserve Bank of India in 1978. He rapidly rose to the rank and reached at the Regional Director of RBI New Delhi. Then he became the principal of RBI's College of Agricultural Banking, CAF, at Pune. Between 2007 and 2008, Mr. Khan was the director of Bank of Maharashtra and Punjab and Sind Bank. He then elevated to the position of executive director of RBI in 2007 and then was appointed as the deputy governor of Reserve Bank of India on 4th July 2011 and superannuated from RBI in the year 2016. Mr. Khan has a number of contributions to the field of business and finance. His outstanding achievements are: he was the chairman of RBI Internal Group on Rural Credit and Microfinance, popularly known as the Khan Committee. Ultimately, the recommendations of the Khan Committee become a vehicle to spread financial inclusion in India. Towards the end of his career, Mr. Khan chaired the working group on development of corporate bond market in India. Its report, also popularly referred as Khan Committee report, considered various structural issues impinging on the development of deep corporate bond market in India. Apart to this, few of his other important assignments are Member Secretary Committee on Wage and Means Advances for the state governments, Convener Working Group on Instruments of Sterilization, Convener Working Group on Model Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Bill of the states, and many others. With these few words, I welcome you, sir, to this assemblage. Let us come to our guest of honor and keynote speaker, Sri Amitav Mukherjee, Director Finance of NMDC Limited. Sri Mukherjee is a cost accountant. He also holds Master of Commerce degree from Guru Ghasidas University, Bilaspur. He joined into Indian Railway Service, IRAS, and belonging to 1995 batch. Before joining as IRAS, he has worked in Indian Oil Corporation Limited, IOCL, as accounts officer from 1994 to 1997. Being an IRAS officer, he then held the post of General Manager Finance in Rail Vikas Nigam Limited for the period around 2.5 years. Eastern Railways from 1997 to 2016. Sri Mukherjee then assumed the charge as Director of Finance of NMDC Limited as a Schedule A Government of India enterprise with the Navaratna status. Under the Ministry of Steel on 2018. Since then, he is taking care of the responsible post of Director of Finance at NMDC Limited. He is on the board of the various subsidiary and associate companies of NMDC. With these few words, I welcome you, sir, to this symposium. Let us come to our other guest of honor, Professor Dr. Pranam Dhar. We are very fortunate to have with us Professor Dr. Pranam Dhar. Dr. Dhar is MCom, Ph.D, DLit in Management and DLit in Banking and Finance and Grad CWA. Professor Dhar is currently the head Department of Commerce and Management, West Bengal State University, Kolkata. Professor Dhar has organized and contributed 3 numbers of research projects under the University Grants Commission. He has authored 20 number of text and reference books and 112 research papers in the field of finance and management. We are very much thankful to you for agreeing to be with us in this symposium. Let us come to our President, ASBM University, Professor Dr. Biswajeet Pattanayak, a passionate promoter of creativity and commitment, inspiration builder and management guru par excellence. Professor Dr. Pattanayak has been much acclaimed for championing the cause of the world-class management education in a progressive state like Odisha. Professor Pattanayak created history by introducing the blockbuster Lagan, a commercial movie, to the serious classrooms of prestigious IIMs and corporate boardrooms, which brought legendary laurels for him as the Lagan Professor. An outstanding and prolific writer in the management areas, Professor Pattanayak has authored many prominent books, of which human resource management and creating performing organization have been all-time corporate bestsellers. Professor Dr. Pattanayak is the head to our ASBM University family. It is a very difficult task on my part to explain him. Can a little leaf be able to explain a Mahadrama, I mean a tree? With these few words, I welcome you, sir, to this symposium. Let us come to our Vice Chancellor of ASBM University, Professor Dr. Kalyan Shankar Ray. Having worked in different verticals, Professor Dr. Ray explains why education sector is the best to work in. Education domain has given enriching experience and has helped him prosper over years. He believes that every person should have an entrepreneurial mindset to generate new innovative ideas. Thus, he has chosen his holy profession and platform to express himself. What to be told about him? He is a constant source of inspiration for all the members of faculty and staff of this institute. With these few words, I welcome you, sir, to this symposium. Once again, I welcome to all our guests and speakers to this symposium. Thank you to all. Over to Salini.
Thank you, sir. I now request our Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Kalyan Shankar Ray, to deliver his welcome address. Sir, please.
Thank you, Shalini. Mr. President, sir, our Honorable Chief Guest, Mr. H.R. Khan, our guests of honor, Mr. Mukherjee and Dr. Dhar, delegates, my faculty colleagues, students, and the coordinators of this symposium, Dr. Padona Mahapatra and Dr. Rupsa Mahapatra. Lehman Brothers was an iconic American investment bank with $639 billion in assets and 25,000 employees worldwide. Because of mismanagement, it had to file for bankruptcy on 15 September 2008. This sounded the death knell for many business houses and led to a global financial crisis and recession in many parts of the world. Of course, India was largely unaffected thanks to our conservative banking system, ably managed by the regulator, Reserve Bank of India, under the competent stewardship of the then Governor C. Y.V. Reddy. Incidentally, we are fortunate that our esteemed chief guest today, C. H.R. Khan, was a member of that team as the then executive director of RBI. As an offshoot of that global financial crisis, corporate sustainability has now become a buzzword in companies big and small. Corporate giants like Walmart and McDonald's have named sustainability as the key priority for moving forward. And the point that I want to make is that to be sustainable, an organization, and for that matter, even an economy, presupposes proper management of finance. This begs the question, what exactly sustainability is? We expect a business or an economy to last long. And in order to last long, that business or that economy needs to be supported. Similarly, we have to make our world maintainable and sustainable for our future generations. Sustainable future is, of course, much broader. Based on the Brundtland Commission's declaration, our common future, we can say that a sustainable future is possible when people meet their present needs in such a way that the ability of the coming generations to meet their own needs at a future date does not get compromised. In other words, our future will be sustainable if we at present do not threaten our own ability to enjoy the future. There is a notion, protect the environment and sustainability will be taken care of. But remember, sustainability is not environment alone. In fact, sustainable future stands on three pillars: social, environmental, and financial, commonly referred to as people, planet, profit, the triple bottom line, TPL. The social pillar says that a sustainable business should have the support and approval of the people, the employees, the stakeholders, and the society at large. To strengthen the environmental pillar, companies have to focus on reducing their carbon footprint, packaging waste, and water usage for the overall positive impact of the planet. The financial or economic pillar envisages that to be sustainable, a business must be profitable. Does it mean that profit is the be-all and end-all of all ventures? Does it mean that profit at any cost is what the economic pillar is all about? No, absolutely not. Profit has to coexist with and provide support to the other two pillars. This can be possible through ESG, good environmental, social, and governing practices in finance. And coming to investment, the things that we talk of are SRI, socially responsible investing, and impact investing, investment which has positive impact on the society. And here comes the role of management of finance for a sustainable future, the theme of our symposium today. We are privileged to have with us today as our Honorable Chief Guest, Mr. H.R. Khan, former Deputy Governor of Reserve Bank of India. He has been one of the architects of good governance practices in banking and the financial world. The keynote address will be delivered by a veteran in financial decision making and past master in finance, Mr. Amitav Mukherjee, Director of Finance of NFDC, the public sector behemoth. We also have Professor Dr. Pradhan Dhar, Head, Department of Commerce and Management, West Bengal State University. He is an academician of repute and an expert in finance and banking. I extend my hearty welcome to each one of them. I express my sincere gratitude. I also welcome our founder and president, Professor Biswajeet Pattanayak, and the delegates. The proceedings of this symposium are being streamed live in the university auditorium for our students and faculty members. I also welcome them. Thank you. Thank you very much. Over to you, Shalini.
Thank you, sir. I now request our distinguished keynote speaker, Mr. Amitav Mukherjee, Director of Finance, NMDC, to kindly address the assembly. Sir, please.
I hope I'm audible. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I would first like to thank Dr. Pattanayak and his team at ASBM University to give me this privilege and opportunity and honor to interact with such distinguished guests and such brilliant students. I feel humbled today that I have this opportunity to speak. Now let's start. The topic is, of course, sustainability of finance. Now, what is sustainability? It's obviously the ability to maintain a certain level or rate and to avoid depletion or permanent damage. In short, our today should be better than yesterday, and our tomorrow should be better than our today. That means not only survival, but some element of growth as well. Now, the role, so far as business is concerned, what is the role of the finance professional in this area is actually twofold. One is to arrange the finance to ensure that the business sustains its future endeavors. Now, finance is generally today fairly available, but it must be arranged at a bearable cost and with certain amount of certainty and predictability so that the business needs can be met and planning for the future can be done. But as we all know, with each option, there are pros and cons. So if we go leveraging through debt and we cannot manage it, there is IBC and there's the dangers of excessive leveraging can lose the business. We have seen that happen for SR. We've seen that happen for Bhushan Steel. Other options like international listing, taking equity from the international market, which is now permitted under Companies Act Amendment in 2013, but we'll then have to face the stricter compliance requirements that are there in these advanced countries. We can also opt for exotic international instrument like masala bonds, but it has exchange risk fluctuations, the exchange fluctuation risks embedded into it. So the challenge is actually to ensure a correct mix and also constantly modify the portfolio to ensure A, that it is in the least cost, with the least risk, and with the best of terms. On the other side, our role as finance professionals is to analyze and predict if the business is running on a sustainable course. And this is the more difficult and unstructured part of our job. Because we know that yesterday's cash cows can become tomorrow's bleeding wounds, and it can not only damage you very severely, but it can even take down the business. Our ability to heed early signals that something is wrong somewhere that needs repair or fixing, or maybe even replacement. That is where our professional competence comes into being. But unfortunately, many instances have been there where we have failed to detect or ignored, actually not detect, sometimes even ignored such early warning signals. And ignorance is basically because of complacency. And we have realized it too late by the time damage has been done, and it has been done right under our noses, and the long-term viability of the business have been severely compromised. What we must realize that we live in what is called a VUCA world, VUCA, that stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Now, VUCA makes our life difficult and challenging because there is no beaten path to tread, no paved way, no paved track to follow. We have to discover our own way through the forest and woods. And to respond to disruptions, we have to anticipate it first. Now, these disruptions can come in any way, from our own business decisions, from emerging technologies, from the business environment, from competition, and sometimes bolt from the blue, like COVID-19, which caught all of us unprepared. But it had very important lessons for all of us. And that lesson is, be prepared even if nothing is on the horizon. And the responses were absolutely varied and unique and sometimes brilliant. Hotels tied up with hospitals to ensure that they have occupancies. Airlines like SpiceJet started focusing on freight and cargo just to survive. Now, this world is so unstable, just being big is no insurance. If you take Fortune 500 companies, the average life of a Fortune 500 company in the 1960s used to be 40 to 50 years, much lesser than human life. And it has come down to less than 17 years, around 16.5 years now. And 50% of Fortune 500 companies change every 10 years. So being big is no guarantee for survival. In fact, it could become a dinosaur because you tend to become much more bureaucratic when you tend to be grow and big. And sometimes excessive growth you cannot handle because you don't have the capacity to sustain that growth or to adopt that growth. So the biggest danger today in the business is lack of agility and lack of innovative leadership. We have to be ready to face situations that have not been created by us. Take high input prices of oil or commodities, hyperinflation or recession in the economy. Nothing has been created by us. Nothing has been created by the business, but it has to be faced by the business. A subprime crisis in US affects businesses in Hyderabad, Bhubaneswar, and Delhi. The question is who survives such disruptions and who survives such calamities. Those who have practiced financial prudence. And financial prudence is not a one-time or overnight phenomenon. It's a culture. It's ethos. For example, if you are in a cyclical business like steel, it's always a good idea to skim the cream of the crest so that your ability to bounce back from the troughs is much more higher. And if you are in the stable market, you have to constantly innovate, add value, in fact, create value, acquire customers, satisfy retain existing customers. So it's a very, very dynamic world that we live in today. And survival of not the fittest, but the most agile is the mantra. Thankfully, technology has also given us certain tools. The big data analytics, the business analytics are there to help. In fact, the predictive analytical business space is growing at a CAGR of 24 to 25%. And it's currently at around 7.2 billion globally, the business size, US dollars. And it is expected to grow up to $21.5 billion by 2025. And we can have technology to design our financial diagnostic systems with this cutting edge technology, whether we base it on SAP HANA or further advanced tools is a choice that businesses have these days. But the problem and the challenge today is understanding, adopting, and then utilizing such cutting-edge tools. As finance professionals, we must also have a keen eye for restructuring, mergers, demergers, and acquisitions, because business is not a static entity. The question that is always asked is whether we should conquer new territories or defend our old turf. We just cannot survive on past glory. Yesterday is done and tomorrow is another day. And sitting on mountains of cash is absolutely no insurance. Apple, for example, is facing some problems, although it has 36 billions of cash in its books. It did downgrade its revenue forecast by $9 billion last year, which is 13% of its revenue forecast. And the buzz around iPhone 12 was actually much less than the buzz that had happened around iPhone 5. And the customers are decreasingly upgrading their phones. They are actually repairing or continuing with the older version. And the revenues from iPhone is down 20%. As a result, Apple did disguise its cost-cutting measures as environmental friendly measures by not providing chargers. But being big means also you have big problems. And there is where critical role of finance professionals like us come in. Decisions like what to let go, what to acquire, what would be the valuation, what would be the structuring. A very interesting story about how to, about what happens in a lifetime of a big business. Let's take the Nokia story. A lot of you know about the mobile phone part of it. But Nokia was actually established in 1865 in Finland as a paper and pulp company. And then it went on to electric generation, and then to rubber, and then started making respirators. About 100 years after its inception, in around 1967, it restructured into 4 major divisions of forestry, cable, rubber, and electronics. Now, this electronics led them to military business, with which they went into Russia. And they started their journey in telephony by making exchanges and in robotics. Subsequently, in the early 80s, it acquired Salora TV and became the 3rd biggest manufacturer of TV in Europe. Then it started making PCs after acquisition of the information systems division of Ericsson. But the biggest acquisition came in mid-80s, which was Mobira, which took them to the mobile phone business, and they started with car phones. Subsequently, they co-invented GSM technology with Siemens and invented the camera phone, of course, and became the biggest sellers of camera, much more than Canon and Nikon and Yashica through their phones. In the 1990s, again, there was a downturn, and there was a series of restructuring where they closed or sold their traditional businesses of tire, rubber, computer, power, and television. And in mid-1996, around 1996, it was a loss-making company with hardly 6.5 billion euro of revenue. But in 5 years, the revenue rose 5x in 2011 to $31 billion, 31 billion euros, and started making profit of around 5 billion euros. And it reached 2008 peak where it had 40% market share in the mobile market, way ahead of its second position, Motorola. But it again took only 3 years for tables to turn and it started making losses by 2011, because by that time Apple had come in with its touchscreen technology and its full screen phones. So as you know, then Nokia was able to sell its mobile business to Microsoft for $7.2 billion, which it could not again run. And Microsoft resold it at 5% of its purchase value at around $350 million. But even after this, Nokia went ahead and bought Alcatel-Lucent of France and entered into the 5G technology space in 2016. And it pioneered 5G technology in 2016. And by 2018, it signed the biggest deal with NTT Docomo of Japan to provide 5G services in Japan. And 2020, it restructured into 2 major businesses. One was Nokia Network, which is right now the 3rd largest telecom manufacturer after Huawei and Cisco in the 5G space. And there's Nokia Technologies. So for a business to survive this long, 150 years against an average lifespan of 40 to 50 years, imagine the number of restructurings, the permutations, the combinations, the acquisitions, the demergers that a company like of that size goes through, a Fortune 500 goes through. So unless you are agile, Nokia would have never survived the 2011 disaster of their mobile phone and now become the 3rd largest manufacturer in the 5G telephony market. So our finance role is to ensure that such agility is maintained. And I've almost taken my time, but I'll take 2 more minutes to speak about my company, which is NMDC. As you know, it is a 60-year-old PSU with Navratna status, and we have been profitable since 1991 and constantly profitable since then, one of the most profitable PSUs. 1991 was a watershed period because at that time the sintering technology came in. Prior to that, 70% of our production, of our mining production, was fines, which was not used in steel plants. It was a waste, and we didn't make profits. Once the sintering technology came, where fines became a saleable product, we started making profit, and we have been profitable ever since. In around 10 years back, before that, I'd like to inform you that we are the biggest iron ore miner in the country. We also mine diamonds, and we are the 10th biggest iron ore miner in the world. Our performance and operation standards are comparable with the best and the biggest, be it Rio Tinto, BHP, or FMG in terms of C1 cost of mining, our EBITDA margins, and other such parameters which are normally taken into account. We have operations in Australia through subsidiary, and Mozambique and in Tanzania. In 2010, we took a decision to integrate, to forward integrate and invest in a 3 MTPA greenfield integrated steel plant at an estimated cost of 22,000 crores or $3 billion. And actual expenditure till date is around 18,000 crores or $2.5 billion. It has been financed completely through our equity. But now we are taking a mid-course correction. The realization is that possibly we will not be able to make a profitable venture out of it. So we have decided to have a mid-course correction, and we are demerging the entity after leveraging it. We will lose approximately $1.3 billion, around 13,000 crores. But in the long term, we thought concentrating on mining business is a much healthier way and a much surer way of extending our profitability in the long term. We take this as an example of a bold course correction even in a PSU environment. We are investing big time into mining capacity expansion, and hopefully by the end of the decade, we will be around 100 million ton of iron ore production. We are investing around 2 billion on doubling of railway line, on evacuation, on a slurry pipeline, again on evacuation, around $400 million, and on screening plant around $300 million all. Our investment philosophy is slightly conservative. We have the first hurdle to clear, that is, we ask our questions that whether we will survive the worst case situation. We assess the worst case situation, and if we think we can survive that, we go into the assessment of the profitability. For example, if I give you, we are having the best magnetite reserves in Australia under us. But to develop that, it requires 5 billion, a risk that does not clear the first hurdle. So we cannot go to the second hurdle point. So we are looking for partners and people who could partner us there. But in terms of gold, and as you know, that gold is a very risky business. And in fact, the odds in a casino with the Russian roulette are much more than odds with gold. So what we are doing there is we had invested 30 million because we could take the worst case scenario. And thankfully, the returns are very, very good. Hopefully, we are going to have good returns on that business environment. What I was trying to communicate to this August gathering is that we have very, very important role in ensuring that our businesses sustain in the long run and they survive much more than the average lifespan of 40 to 50 years that was in the 60s of even for big companies. With that, I would like to thank you all for your patient hearing, and thank you, God bless, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for presenting a clear picture of business excellence through your excellent exposition. May I now take the privilege of requesting our guest of honor, Professor Dr. Pranam Dhar, Head, West Bengal State University, Kolkata, to address us. Sir, please.
Hello.
Holder.
Hello.
Yes, Dr. Thar, you are audible.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Right now you are audible. Right now you are audible.
Oh, very good morning. Very good morning, everybody.
Morning. Good morning.
Sorry for the network issues. And I request everybody to cooperate. There was a network issue, and I extend my heartfelt regards and gratitude to inviting me uh, to share my views without wasting much time. As this is the seminar on uh, emerging issues in international and national financial scenario. So I'll be discussing on cryptocurrency and bitcoins and their future, not only in India but all over the world. Without wasting much time, let me share my screen. Is my screen visible? Screen
Yes,
visible?
it's visible, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. So my topic of deliberation today is the about cryptocurrency and bitcoins, the next generation of money and payments. Because without finance, without currency, nothing is going to happen. And when we are discussing anything in the scenario of present changes in the financial condition of not only in India but also the whole world is concerned, we definitely have to discuss the about the next generation of payments, that is e-currency, digital wallet, everything. So in this context, I am making my presentation on the cryptocurrency and bitcoins, the next generation of money and payments, an overview. So basically, the next generation of money and payments is based on cryptocurrency and other currencies. There are various innovative money payment systems in the market today, many of which are built on platforms like the mobile phone, the internet, and the digital storage card. These alternative payment systems have been encouraging or even continued growth from the likes of PayPal, Apple Pay, Google Wallet, Alipay, TenPay, M-Pesa, BitPay, First, TransferWise, and many more. Beyond payment systems that are based on fiat currency, the growing use of digital currency allows for faster, more flexible, and more innovative payments and ways in financing goods and services. One digital currency, however, stands out among the rest. Bitcoin is one of the most well-known digital currencies today. To be specific, Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency which is a subset of what is generally known as digital currency. Bitcoin is a unique cryptocurrency that is widely considered to be the first of its kind. Like many created after it, Bitcoin uses the power of the internet to process its transactions. But before discussing about cryptocurrency, we have to know that this type of currency innovation process was invented even in the ages 350 BCE, where Aristotle defined sound money as durable, transferable, divisible, scarce, recognizable, and fungible. That means easily converted into other currencies. So, what are the properties of sound money? First of all, they must be durable, that is physically stable, does not rot or rust or melt. Then it must be scarce, that is limited quantity available for use. Thirdly, it must be transferable, that is easy to transfer ownership from one person to another. Then it must be recognizable, that is easy to recognize and verify authenticity. Then it must be divisible, that means can be subdivided into smaller units of money. Then it must be fungible, that is one unit of money can be substituted for another. So money has changed its shape and form through different ages. What are the drawbacks of physical currency? Mainly, first of all, paper currency is of no value outside the country where it is used. Then there is possibility of the damage to paper. Fire may burn it, it can be damaged. Government can ban it anytime, like Modi ji did in 2016. And international transactions are very much difficult. Even in digital transaction, like bank Paytm, you have to depend upon banks. And risk of hacking is there in digital transactions. So earlier forms of currency, even we don't know that ages in the Mesopotamia, that is in the Bronze Age, the earliest known currencies were received from gain storage found in Mesopotamia. In the Bronze Age, ingots were used for trade, but currency didn't really take off until coinage was introduced in the Iron Age. Marco Polo notoriously came back from the Far East with a detailed description of exotic currencies like banknotes, salt, and cowrie shells. Now you will be astonished to know that tobacco was also used as currency. Many more limited economies found no use for rare metals and instead relied on goods as currency. The pound of tobacco was an official currency unit in Virginia during the colonial era. Rice could be used in South Carolina. Pails were used as currency by the Hudson Bay Company. Now coming to the Western Union and the dematerialization of money. The telegraph company opened in 1851 and by 1861 it had linked both coasts. By 1871 it allowed money transfer over its lines, taking the first step in the fundamental visualization of money. Now this present age deals with cryptocurrency and other things where there is virtual scarcity. I'm coming to that concept. But now digital currency is used as an alternative currency. Although digital and virtual currencies are often used interchangeably when describing currencies based on an electronic medium, the term virtual has a negative connotation. Virtual signals something that is something real but not exactly real when referring to a currency that is stored in a digital or electronic register. Indeed, in languages like the Chinese, the word virtual is interpreted as created from nothing, in the sense that it is not physical but computer generated or computer simulated. However, the currencies often described as virtual are very real in the sense that they exist. Thus, the more neutral term digital currency is generally preferred over virtual currency. Now, we can classify the alternative currencies. Alternative currencies refer to a medium of exchange over the fiat currency. Historically, there are various types of alternative currencies, but mainly there are currencies with intrinsic utility. This class of currency includes metals and cigarettes in post World War II, Berlin, and more contemporary examples are prepaid phone cards, etc. Then token 17th to 19th century British tokens and the Great Depression script in the 1930s are the historical examples. And thirdly, centralized digital currency. Examples of loyalty points from financial, telecom, or retail companies are air miles from airlines, second lives, Linden dollar, and World of Warcraft gold, which are closed system with transactions within specified entities. Then the fourth type is distributed and or decentralized digital currency. This includes cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Dogecoin. They can be transacted with any outside agent, and the governance is decentralized mainly, but not necessarily due to the open source software. Now, why alternative currencies we use? There are various socio-economic forces that drive the demand for alternative currencies. Am I still audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. There are various socio-economic forces that drive the demand for alternative currencies. Firstly, localism. By promoting community commerce or save high street, localism remains consumption within a group of independent retailers or within a geographic area for job creation and improved business conditions. Number B, technology. It has become much easier to use with improved software and low entry barriers contributing to network effects. Thirdly, political economy. There is disillusionment about the high pay of CEOs and bankers and the notion of traditional banks being too big to fail. With high debt and quantitative easing, there is great discomfort with the economic uncertainty. And number four, environmentalism. There are ecology concerns and the question of whether we have reached the point of maximum extraction of natural resources such as oil. Then number five is inefficiencies. Financial services are overpriced and whole financial system is too expensive. Number 6 is financial freedom. Some digital currencies such as cryptocurrencies have the advantage of transferring value through the internet where control is weak. Such digital currencies may allow users to bypass capital controls and may provide safe harbor during a fiat currency crisis. And last but not the least is speculation. Buyers of some digital currencies such as cryptocurrencies are anticipating a price appreciation due to subsequent wider acceptance. It is very easy to create a cryptocurrency as an alternative currency for free today. However, most of these new creations will cease circulation within a relatively short time. With many alternative currencies in competition, only a few will be globally adopted, reach a sufficient scale, or find a suitable market. Now, cryptocurrency in its purest form is a peer-to-peer version of electronic cash. It allows online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. The network timestamps transactions using the cryptographic proof of work. The proof of work Bitcoin protocol is basically a contest for decoding and an incentive to reward those who participate. For Bitcoin, first participant to crack the code will be rewarded with the newly created coins. This contest will form a record of the transactions that cannot be changed without redoing the proof of work. Cryptocurrency is a subset of digital currency. Examples of many digital currencies are air miles issued by airlines, game tokens for computer games and online casinos, Brixton pound to be spent only in the Brixton local community in the Greater London area, and so many more. Now the beginning with eCash. Commercially, it all began with DigiCash Incorporation's product eCash system in 1990, based on two papers by its founder Chom in 1983 and Chom et al. In 1992. Payments were transferred online and offline using the cryptographic protocols to prevent the double spending. The cryptographic protocols also used blind signatures to protect the privacy of its users. As the first cryptocurrency eCash system was available via various banks and smart cards in various countries like the United States and Finland, it slowly evolved into the current form of cryptocurrencies with many refinements by various software developers over the last 20 years. Now, pioneering internet payments with digital gold. Digital gold currency came into the limelight between 1999 and the early 2000s. Most of these new forms of electronic money based on ounces of gold are stored at the bullion, and the storage fees are charged. We have seen the growth of e-dinar, Pecunix, iGolder, Liberty Reserve, G-Bullion, e-Gold, and e-Cash. With the couple of exceptions, most have ended up in the graveyard due to the earlier compliance issues or regulatory breaches. E-Gold was a pioneer for internet payments. Now coming to the revival of cryptocurrency. At the onset of global currency crisis in 2008, interest on cryptocurrency was revived. Cryptocurrency had the potential to counter a few problems associated with the fiat currency system, argued Szabo in 2008 in a blog post just at the beginning of the global financial crisis. Given that it is cumbersome to transact using commodities, the concept of bit gold was mooted. As the name suggests, there is gold to be mined and bit recorded on a digital register. The digital record would resolve the issues of a trusted third party. Despite sounding technical, what Szabo described was a simple protocol that requires participants to spend resources to mine the digital gold or bit gold, be rewarded, and in the process validate the public digital register. What differentiated his approach from failed digital currencies of the past were the timing of the financial crisis and the distributed nature of the protocol. The reward to the miners was one innovation, and the free access to digital record for the users was another. One of the reasons mandatory fees much harder, while voluntary subsidy is much easier. Therefore, there must be no barrier to access content or digital record, and there must be ease of use and voluntary payments. Now, revival of cryptocurrency. The use of cryptocurrencies as a safe haven and as an alternative asset class was demonstrated in 2013. Property where a 6.75% levy was imposed on bank deposits up to 100k euro dollars and 9.9% for larger deposits. With confidence in traditional banking second, investors were betting heavily on the most well-known cryptocurrency Bitcoins to offer a more stable alternative. Now many investors have converted their fiat money into cryptocurrency, sending the price and volume to spike. The price of Bitcoin spiked 57% within a week to US dollar. Like gold and other commodities, Bitcoin's price spikes in moments of uncertainty. Both assets are increasingly favored by a small group of managers in alternative investment and critics of contemporary monetary policy. The most common arguments against Bitcoin are: for number one, the lack of a central issuing authority like that of a central bank, its fixed supply and deflationary nature by design, doubts that the price is stable enough to function as a currency, and the risk associated with it. Now coming directly to the Bitcoin, an example of cryptocurrency is Bitcoins. Satoshi Nakamoto published a paper on the web in 2008. Am I audible? Am I
Yes,
audible?
yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Because I am seeing the screen, so I am not seeing anybody. So very sorry to disturb you. Satoshi Nakamoto published a paper on the web in 2008 for a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Despite many efforts, the identity of Satoshi remains unknown to the public, and it is not known whether Satoshi is a group or a person. The cryptocurrency invented by Satoshi Nakamoto, called Bitcoins, is run using open source software. It can be downloaded by anyone, and the system runs on a decentralized peer-to-peer network. It is not only decentralized but also supposedly fully Satoshi in Japanese means wise. And someone has suggested that the name might be portmanteau for four technology companies like Samsung. First two letters called portmanteau. First two letters of Samsung is SA. So first five letters of Toshiba is Toshi. First four letters of Nakamichi is Naka, and first four letters of Motorola is Moto, and that names becomes Satoshi Nakamoto. Others have noted that it could be a team for the National Security Agency, that is NSA, or an e-commerce firm. Other suggestions are David Chaum, the late Al Finney, and Nick Szabo, Wei Dai, Gravin Anderson, and the Japanese living in the neighborhood of Finney by the same surname, Dorian Nakamoto. There are other suggestions such as Vili Ledon Vitra, Michael Clear, Neil King, Vladimir Oxman, and many more, but most of them publicly denied themselves to be Satoshi. Introduction of Bitcoin 11 distributed. That means that every node or computer terminal is connected to each other. Every node can leave and rejoin the network as will and will accept later the longest proof of work known as blockchain as an alternative record. Now what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a first decentralized digital currency. Bitcoin is just a digital file that lists accounts and money like a ledger. A copy of this file is maintained on every computer on the network. Even if a villager needs to open a Bitcoin account, he just needs to have a smartphone. Then he will have the power of international credit and can transfer money to anyone in the world. Now, general features of Bitcoin are: Bitcoin is a decentralized network and a digital currency that uses a peer-to-peer system to verify and process transactions. Instead of relying on trusted third parties like banks and card processors to process payments, the Bitcoin technology uses cryptographic proof in its computer software to process transactions and to verify the legitimacy of Bitcoins, and spreads the processing work among the network. We make a clear distinction between the Bitcoin system, where a capital is required for the word Bitcoin, and that of a Bitcoin, which is a unit of the currency or a digital address created by the Bitcoin system. With the invention of Bitcoin, payments can be made over the internet without the control and cost of a central authority. For the first time, prior to the invention, transactions carried out online always required a third party as a trusted intermediary to verify transactions. For example, when Alice wants to send $10 to Bob, she would have to use a third party service like a credit card network or PayPal, etc. The function of the third party service is to provide an assurance that the sender Alice has the funds to transfer and the recipient Bob has successfully received the funds. This is possible because these intermediaries get help maintain a record or a ledger of balance that is known as that is done under blockchain technology. Now you see Bitcoin price history. When introduced in India in 19 July 2010, the price in US dollar was only $0.06, and in INR it was only 3.84. Now the price has increased. I am giving you the data, not the current data, but I have got the data up to August 2017. In US dollar it is 4572.27, and in Indian rupee it is 2,92,054. So you see immense enhancement in the value of cryptocurrencies. So it is a very good option to invest. Now, what are the features of Bitcoin? Like physical money and bank money, you do not need a third party gatekeeper. Much lesser transaction charges, around rupees 10 to rupees 30, depends upon services. Bitcoin is a global currency. No country or no company or country or organization owns it, which means no one can shut it down. Just internet is not shut down. This cryptocurrency market is not shut down unless your mobile or your computer or laptop is distracted. Only 21 million bitcoins can be mined and 16.5 million are already mined. ZPay, Unicoin and CoinSecure are a few popular bitcoins wallets used in India. And the measurement units are 0.00000001 bitcoins equals to 1 satoshi. Who is Satoshi Nakamoto already discussed, and how Bitcoin works to a layman or layperson. Bitcoin is a digital currency that is created and held electronically. These bitcoins are sent and received using a mobile app, computer software or service provider that provides a Bitcoin wallet. The wallet generates an address akin to a bank account number, except that a Bitcoin address is a unique alphanumeric sequence of characters where the user can start to receive payments. Usually bitcoins may be obtained by buying them at a Bitcoin exchange or vending machine or as payment for goods and services. However, Bitcoin is a revolutionary instrument because the double spending problem can be solved without needing a third party. In computer science, the double spending problem refers to a problem that digital money could be easily spent more than once. Consider the situation where digital money is merely a computer file, just like a digital document. Alice could send $10 to Bob by sending a money file to him and can easily do it by email. However, remember that sending a file actually sends a copy of the file and does not delete the original file from the computer. When Alice attaches a money file in an email to Bob, she still retains a copy of the money file even after she has sent and therefore spent it. Without a trusted third-party intermediary to ensure otherwise, Alice could easily send the same, that is $10 to another person, Charlie. Now, how Bitcoin works? Bitcoin solves the double spending problem by maintaining a ledger of balances, but instead of relying on a single trusted third party, this responsibility to the entire network. Behind the scenes, the Bitcoin network constantly keeps track of Bitcoin balances in a public ledger called the blockchain. The blockchain is a publicly accessible, authoritative record of all transactions ever processed, allowing anyone to use Bitcoin software to verify the validity of a transaction. Transfers of Bitcoins or transactions are broadcast to the entire network and are included onto the blockchain upon successful verification, so that spent Bitcoins cannot be spent again. Now, this is the blockchain. You see, there are the layers like the hashtag is used as the mark of symbol of transactions, and you see in every transaction the hash of previous block is given, and they are passing through different levels. This is the architecture, and shared data mining and data warehousing has an important role to play. Now, how Bitcoin transaction works? This is an example. You see, one person known as John Doe using digital signature passes his Bitcoins and sending requests to the server. And this server has a complex mathematical algorithm to solve to pass the money to another person known as Narayan Vyas, who uses his digital signature to recover the money virtually and with the BTC transaction being verified. And this is the scan code or QR code you can use to pay with Bitcoin. Now, why trust Bitcoin? What are the advantages? Bitcoin is open source, which means the codes and rules governing Bitcoin are open on the internet to be publicly audited. Bitcoin is transparent. You know how many Bitcoins exist and you know status of any transaction on blockchain.info. This website can give you every information. No government, no company, no organization owns it, which means no one can stop it. Bitcoin network not yet hacked, so 99.99% uptime on server. Merchants receive payments much faster. That is less than half hours on an average. But what are the disadvantages? There is no customer support. You need to understand the fundamentals of Bitcoins carefully before start trading, and there is no chargeback system available like traditional banks, etc. And definitely, if you lose wallet credential, you will lose Bitcoins permanently. Although it is in still invention stage. Researches are going on, but it is an surely and very good option to invest. And definitely, with this option, new investors can share, invest in bitcoins and cryptocurrency. And there is not enough time today. If I find time in any other day, I can show you hands on how to transact through bitcoins. And once again, I extend my heartfelt regards and gratitude to you all from ASBM University, especially Dr. Padmanabha Mahapatra and Madam Mahapatra for giving me a chance and helping in every way so that I could connect. My mother is critically ill, so I am on way to see her. So not in physical mode. So very sorry for the technical issues. But I again extend my heartfelt regards and gratitude for giving me a chance to speak before this learned gathering. And if you have any question, you can ask me, and I can answer your questions. You can ask.
Thank you, sir. You have very concisely analyzed the theme of the convention through your address. I now take the privilege of requesting our chief guest, Mr. Harun Rashid Khan, former Deputy Governor, Reserve Bank of India, to kindly address us. Sir, please.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
I think we have overshoot our time. So how much time I have, because I have some other commitments also. How much time I have to speak?
We are at your disposal, sir. So take your own time, please.
No, but you have the symposium. Anyway, thank you very much for inviting me to this important symposium being organized by the School of Accountancy. Especially thanks to Professor Biswajeet Pattanayak and the entire ASBM team, and my distinguished two speakers, Mr. Amitabh and Mr. Prof, and students and faculties and all the other guests who have joined this meeting both physically and virtually. In fact, I feel so happy that I am able to join one of the events of ASBM. Many years ago, I had come there. It was a physical meeting, and I miss that physical ambience and miss the bright and beaming faces of students and the faculties. But nevertheless, we know this is the new normal. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So we are into this new normal where we have to manage with this digital or physical, both physical and digital, and more of digital interactions. You know, this new normal has arisen because of what we know as this corona pandemic, and the dividing line, as someone has said, it is BC and AC, before corona and after corona. So after corona, we have this new normal where we have most of interactions have to happen digitally, and this corona has pandemic has very contextual and topical linkage with the subject of the symposium, today's symposium of sustainable finance. No, this is sustainable finance in some sense is connected to what is the latest buzzword, mostly globally and emerging in India also, what we know as ESG, some of which was alluded by from a speaker, environment, social and governance issues. And you know, the ESG, the first part is environmental. And you know, one of the symbols of this pandemic is mask. And that mask has unmasked many of the fault lines of modern civilization. and the way we have progressed so far, we have developed so far. And so the first part is in fact, Pope Francis has said this COVID is in a sense is nature's response to human beings destroying ecological balance, and his radical advice rather was slow down production, slow down consumption, of course, except of course basic needs, and in fact he says that one must live with harmony with nature, and this is what one gets the echo what Mahatma Gandhi used to say, that there is enough for everyone's need but not for everyone's greed. In fact, as a critic of modern civilization, referring to the British colonial system of their financial progress, he used to say that for Britain's prosperity, they have used up half the planet's resources. If Britain has used half the resources of the planet, how many planets we need for the prosperity of the rest of the world and prosperity of India? In fact, this whole concern about environment, man and nature conflict, and spotlight was in a sense brought to the fore in one small little book written in early 1960s by Rachel Carson. The book was Silent Spring. She talked about use of toxic chemicals and how it is affecting the environment, and that led to a lot of hue and cry, and DDT was banned in USA. Ever since then, a lot of focus has arisen over these environmental issues and what the finance and companies in a sense should be doing about environment. In a very simple manner, my understanding of ESG starting with environment would be how do you manage your resources? For example, what is your policy of energy use, both in your offices as well as your production site? How do you handle your management of toxic assets? How do you comply with environmental regulation? Simple thing, for example, nowadays anywhere conference you go, small water bottles or plastic water bottles are distributed. Hundreds of plastic bottles are distributed for meetings or our day-to-day consumption in the office. But most of us know how those plastic bottles, after they're used, how they're misused and thrown and littered, and what sort of havoc they create from environmental point of view. So in fact, in one of the organizations I am associated, we have a glass bottle and a glass. So morning we fill up the bottle, and we take water from glass, and plastic bottles are strict no. Similarly, most organizations use, and home we use RO. To get one glass of RO, we have to twice that amount. We have to destroy the water, that bad water has to go out. So these are some of the simple ways of looking at how we look at environmental sustainability conservation issues. There are examples, there are practical issues, not only just because it's morally right, it's good for the nature, good for all of us. There are practical issues. For example, you see what happened when BP's oil spill over the ocean and what sort of damage it could cause. You see what happened to Bhopal gas tragedy when Union Carbide gases were not looked at, and what happens to in and around your factory if you are not manage your carbon emissions properly. And what happened to recent case of Volkswagen emission control, how it was done. So I think this is very critical from a company's point of view, from financial management point of view. The other dimension of ESG is, of course, social aspects. So social aspect is how you manage relationships with the employees, with your stakeholders, with your customers, and whether you take care of the health and hygiene and safety of your employees, and how do you focus on diversity in workplace, both in terms of gender, in terms of community, in terms of caste, and how do you bother about local flavor one lesson of this recent pandemic has been, if you have a long supply chain, it creates problem, even globally and nationally also. For example, in India, for example, when we had the lockdown was lifted in some parts, still production could not start because in full swing, because the supply chain was widespread. So one point of supply chain, if it is under containment zone or red zone, the other zone which is free or orange or amber zone, it cannot work. So you can collapse your supply chain. So whether you have a focus on local, and so that has a social implication. And of course, all of us know how do we contribute to the social development. We have a legal requirement now in India in corporate social responsibility, and how do we really do it, and whether we just do the tick marking, or we just hand over to some NGO some funds as per the requirement, or do we really do the impact assessment, what impact it has on the society, the money we are spending or we have committed to spend. And of course, the third and the final dimension of ESG is governance, some part of which was discussed by Mr. Amitabh about governance issues in terms of how do you have a very clean and transparent accounting policy. We all, as a student of finance, all of us know what sort of havoc was created by Enron, by Satyam, and companies like that, Voltaire, because of this accounting mischiefs. And how do we handle conflict of interest in your governance framework? We have very recent example of one of the leading private sector banks, the CEO, how he or she was willingly or unwillingly party to a decision relating to his or her spouse, and what has happened, all of us know that story. Of course, the story is still evolving, and some of you must have also read a story about a large multinational shoe company whose CEO was having a parallel go down from where he was making supply. He was making parallel invoices and he was making money at the cost of the company. He was running a parallel company within the company. It's a large multinational shoe company. I'm not naming, some of you must have guessed it. And we also know about what sort of many companies they become sick, but the promoters are quite healthy and robust. And you know what's the many times what's the usual mechanism is that you have subsidiary companies, associate companies, and the related party transactions happen. The main company is hollowed, but funds are transferred elsewhere. And you know how gold plotting happens when we buy a machinery, how you bring equity by inflating. So there are ways of this lack of transparency, not focusing on conflict of interest, not focusing on ethical practices. So these are very, very important aspects going forward for financial management. And as we know, this has become very, very important globally. And as I mentioned, it is also emerging in India. ESG scores are appearing. Companies are being assessed on ESG score. And in fact, this is now driving the sense that we should have long-term return as opposed to short-term return. And as Mr. Amitabh has mentioned, this focuses on sustainability, adaptability or agility and resilience. What happens if there is a huge climate event, if there is a huge natural disaster, with extreme weather conditions? So how resilient we are. And this is also, in a sense, focuses on corporate success by pinpointing that corporate remains healthy and sustainable, and because of it is healthy and sustainable, it can attract new customers, new investors, it can penetrate new markets. So it makes practical sense to comply with ESG. And also, as we discussed, as I briefly mentioned a short while ago, this is also focuses on local sourcing and local jobs. Otherwise, one of the reasons why the globalization came under a lot of fire even before the pandemic was hyper globalization at the cost of national development. So people have moved from a deeper coupling to decoupling. I think you have to strike a balance. Just give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second. Hello. I'm going to meeting. Sorry. So we have to strike a balance between deep coupling and decoupling. So the middle path is that you focus in the local community and see that how much local jobs you can give, how much local sourcing you can do. In fact, some of you must have heard the name of a famous Gandhian, Ila Bhatt, who has set up Seva, self-employed women's organization, bank, and many other NGOs. She has written a book called Anubandhan, building 100 miles communities. So how in a smaller communities you should be self-sufficient. Of course, this looks a bit romantic in the present context when we talk about global supply chain. But then the spirit of it is that as much as you can do local sourcing, local jobs, I think that becomes a hallmark of your success. And also you have a better governance practice. We talked about that how you should focus in the and better transparency and disclosure, much more than even the law requires. You should be on your own. In fact, one of the disclosure requirements now is sustainability report. In fact, because of all these factors, globally, as I mentioned, this ESG has become very, very important. In fact, the European Commission has brought out a taxonomy of sustainable finance to be implemented by end of this year. And when the COVID pandemic package, recovery package of about 750 billion euros, when they talked about, most of it is focused at ESG, boosting ESG in the region. For example, UK also, a large chunk of the recovery package will be for green initiatives, local job creation, and decarbonizing the economy. So there is, and you know, there are many ESG funds now globally. In India also there are ESG oriented ETF, and one of the large investors, BlackRock, has committed that they will increase their sustainable assets from 90 billion US dollar to nearly 1 trillion in the next 10 years. World's largest pension fund of Japan, which is GPIF, they have also increased their ESG investments to ESG indices investments to more than $1 trillion. So this has become very critical and important, both from a philosophical and pragmatic point of view. So I think this is a very timely and topical symposium you organized, and you got some inputs from the previous speakers, and we have a discussion following my talk. I would just maybe time, if you have got 2 minutes, I'll just pose few questions, which possibly when we discuss, you will possibly look at some of these questions and issues and see how do we address. The question one would be, to my mind, is that how do we develop a critical understanding of strategic dimension of sustainability challenges in financial management? Is basically how do you build that conviction and commitment for sustainable finance focused on ESG. The other issue could be how do we reconfigure, how do we reboot the financial system so that it can positively impact the society and enhance the organization's long-term economic value, financial value in terms of value protection as well as value enhancement. And in fact, how the organizations will ride this ESG wave in a very smooth and successful manner. And the third issue could be how do we fashion, how do we devise a framework to respond to financial risks arising from sustainability issues as we embed ESG parameters in our vision, in our mission, in our praxis and plan. And finally, the final issue could be how do we build competencies? How do we create collaborations? How do we engender long-term thinking and long-term planning for enhancing the cause of sustainable finance and ESG-oriented investments? I think these are some of the issues possibly we'll be discussing. You could be discussing as we have the roundtable following this. So thanks again, ASBM, for inviting me. Before I log off, let me tell you a small story. Many of you might have heard that story. So let me end with that story because I mentioned about conviction. So I think the story, can I speak in Hindi? Because this will provide much better context.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
तो ये कहानी इस तरह से है, तो ये एक औरत एक बहुत बड़े साधु थे, तो उनके पास अपने छोटे बच्चे को लेके गई कि साधु जी महाराज, am I audible? मिल रहा है आपको?
Yes, sir, you are audible and please go ahead.
हाँ, तो साधु जी से तो ये महिला उनके बच्चों को लेके गई, तो बोली महाराज ये मेरा बच्चा बहुत मिठाई खा रहा है, जब भी देखो मिठाई खा रहा है, मिठाई छोड़ता नहीं, इसको तो शक्कर की बीमारी हो जाएगी, डायबिटीज हो जाएगी, बचपन से इतना मिठाई खा रहा है, इसका मोटापा भी बढ़ रहा है इस मिठाई के लिए, इसको क्या कर सकते हैं आप, उसको कुछ इलाज करिए। तो साधु जी ने बोला आप अगले हफ्ते आइए। तो उस औरत ने फिर अगले हफ्ते आई, तो फिर वही कहानी दोहराई साधु जी के सामने। साधु जी बोले आप अगले हफ्ते आइए। फिर अगले हफ्ते आई, उसी दिन सोमवार के दिन फिर साधु जी बोले आप अगले हफ्ते आइए। तो 3 हफ्ते के बाद जब चौथे हफ्ते को वो औरत ने वो बच्चे को लेकर जब साधु जी के पास पहुंची, तो साधु जी ने उसको बुलाया, बच्चे को बुलाया, बोला बहुत प्यार से बोले, उसके सर में हाथ रखे और बोले बेटा ये मिठाई खाना, इतना ज्यादा मिठाई खाना खराब है, कम मिठाई खाओ, ठीक है, इसमें से ये समस्या आपको होगी, ये प्रॉब्लम आ जाएगी, आपको ये तकलीफ होगी, ये मिठाई मत खाओ, ये मेरी आपको उपदेश है, आप ये मेरी बात मान लो। तो औरत ने अचंभित हुआ, आश्चर्य हुई कि साधु जी आप ये बात बोलने के लिए आप 3 हफ्ता लगा दिए, आप पहले हफ्ते ही बोल सकते थे उसको ये बात, ये उपदेश। तो साधु जी ने उसको बोला सुनिए, मैं भी बहुत मिठाई खाता हूँ और मैं कैसे इसको बताऊं कि मिठाई कम खाओ, जब मेरे अपने आप को मैं नहीं काबू कर सकता तो इसको कैसे उपदेश देता हूँ। तो पिछले 3 हफ्ता से मैं ये अभ्यास कर रहा था जो मिठाई कैसे कम खाऊं, उसका जब मेरा मिठाई खाने का प्रवृत्ति कम हो गया, उसको मैं उपदेश दे रहा हूँ। So the short point of that, what you preach, you must practice. I think all of us, including the institute, must practice what we will be talking about or we have been talking about, ESG. Thank you very much for giving this an opportunity, and all my best wishes to the rest part of the symposium. Thanks again.
Thank you, sir. We are immensely grateful to you for your gracious presence and illuminating words. I now request our President, ASBM University and Chairman of National Finance Symposium 2021, Professor Dr. Biswajeet Pattanayak, to deliver his presidential address. Sir, please.
Yeah, thank you, Shalini. Esteemed chief guest of this symposium, Mr. Harun Rashid Khan, the former Deputy Governor of Reserve Bank of India, the esteemed other guests and speakers like Mr. Amitabh Mukherjee, Professor Pranam Dhar, our esteemed members, the member of the ASBM Advisory Council, Mr. Biswajeet Pattanayak, who is attending this symposium online. Our Vice Chancellor, Professor Kalyan Shankar Rai, other dignitaries, my faculty colleagues, the coordinator of this particular program, Dr. Padmanabha Mahapatra, the head of School of Accountancy, ASBM University, Dr. Rupsha Mahapatra, the coordinator of this particular symposium, my dear students, those who are attending physically this particular symposium, and ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I extend my sincere gratitude to Mr. Harun Rashid Khan accepting this our invitation and delivered an excellent, the thought-provoking speech. Also, I extend our sincere gratitude to Mr. Amitabh Mukherjee, Professor Dhar, to be part of this inaugural program. The title of this particular discussion, the theme, is Managing Finance for Sustainable Future. To my mind, there are two things which we try to integrate. One is managing finance, and the other one is the sustainable future. All of us, we know that in a business wheel, finance is the fuel, and it helps in moving the wheel in an appropriate direction. When we say sustainability, I think all our esteemed speakers have highlighted the global sustainability, the environmental sustainability, which is a matter of concern. Even the Vice Chancellor also highlighted about the integration of finance and sustainability. Our speakers like Mr. Khan, who spoke about ecological balance, who spoke about the need and greed, which is very important in today's scenario. And also, he has thrown several questions which will be discussed in the technical session, in the roundtable session in the afternoon. Mr. Amitabh Mukherjee, who spoke about VUCA and who spoke about how the Nokia has made the impact in the business environment. Also, he highlighted about the company of his own, the Government of India enterprise, that how they have sustainable the business for last 60 years being in the competition. Now, friends, as I said, that when we talk about sustainability, is the question of stability, is the question of continuity. Now, all of us, we know that the business environment is not stable. The fact remains that when the environment is not stable, obviously the business model cannot be stable. So in a fluid environment, for example, now the COVID came in, the pandemic situation, which has thrown a lot of challenges for all the business enterprise in the world. And we have seen, we have witnessed how difficult it is to pass through this particular phase. Even we are struggling, all of us are struggling in every sector for survival and also to sustain the excellence. Interestingly, if you look at the Fortune 500 companies, of late in last one decade, we find that the companies, those who are at the top, they hardly stay there for a longer period. It means that the stability is in question. It is very easy to reach at the top, but it is very difficult to stay at the top. That is what we have seen in last more than a decade. Now the roller coaster of the companies securing the important positions in Fortune 500 companies. Now any business, when they start, the basic objective of business is to be sustainable. Except some of the fly-by-night operators, maybe their purpose of business is different. But by and large, when a business starts, it starts with a motive, with an objective that it should be sustainable, it should stay for a longer period, and also it should address the purpose, the very purpose of setting up a business. Now, when we define the purpose, how relentlessly, how committedly we pursue the goal to define and redefine the purpose time and again, to be in the competition for a longer period. We have seen the companies like Tata's, companies like Godrej, all Indian companies, how they have sustained their business model, and since last more than 100 years, they are excelling. So these are the best example of the sustainability and managing finance to make the business sustainable. We have a couple of cases also before us, like Kingfisher, Jet Airlines, Sahara Airlines, Air Deccan, and even the future group Big Bazaar. Once upon a time, these companies, they were rocking. They have made a lot of profits. They have made wealth. And today, they are not in the competition. They are not in the business. They have lost. So, it has made us to think that those companies are excelling and they are in the business for more than 100 years. And those companies, those who have perished, what is the basic difference between these two companies? The basic difference is what kind of ethical and value-based approaches they have adopted. And this has taught us the lesson that even if we are robust, even if we are having the cash-rich flow of business, if we don't adopt the ethical and value-based means to make the business, it will collapse. Today, the buzzword is the green finance. We are talking about our duty towards planet, and we are also talking about environment protection. And I'm sure all of us will agree that all the initiation is basically to keep our planet clean and energetic. If the planet is saved, the business is there. If the business is there, the finance is there. So the most important aspect is how do we become environmentally sensitive and responsible. Now I would like to highlight here that there is a concept called decision-making accountability. Now it has been identified through research that most of the successful and excellent organizations, they are called healthy organizations. And those healthy organizations, they have high DMA, decision-making accountability, which is like a DNA of any living element. Now in organization, the decision-making accountability, to my mind, If it is not there, then we find a lot of unethical and lot of the business practices which are not sustainable in the long run. In fact, I would like to quote here the CEO of Morgan Stanley. Rightly, he has highlighted, if we do not have a planet, we are not going to have very good financial system. So all of us, we need to understand the importance of the responsible, environmental sensitive business initiatives which should be sustainable in the long run. Similarly, I would like to also quote Mark Joseph Carney, the Canadian great economist and banker, who is the former governor of Bank of Canada and also the former governor of Bank of England, who has said, companies that do not adapt will go bankrupt without question. So if we are not agile, if we are not open to change, if we don't realize the values and ethics attached to the purpose of business, I am sure that we will not sustain. Now, before I conclude, I must highlight here that the issue of the making the business cycle to run, it needs appropriate decision-making process of financial management. Because finance is such, I have seen rightly Mr. Khan has said that promoters have become richer in business organizations, but the organization has become poorer. And that I have seen that the asset worth, how the promoters become very happy to see the worth of assets, which has no value in the long run. Of course, this is not the case in the non-government organization or charitable organization, where the purpose is different and the business model is different. So once again, I thank all the esteemed speakers and also the organizers, and we look forward to the discussion in the afternoon session and the summing up the value which we have carried from this inaugural program, that business has to be sustainable, and for that we need the ethical value systems in managing business, and also we need to be responsible and accountable towards making this planet a beautiful planet with a purpose of making business with need-based, not the.
Thank you, sir. The inaugural ceremony has now come to an end. I request the co-coordinator of the symposium, Dr. Rupsa Mahapatra, to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Shalini. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. This is Dr. Rupsa Mahapatra, Assistant Professor in ASBM University. First of all, I would like to thank our eminent speakers, Mr. Harun Rashid Khan, sir, Mr. Amitav Mukherjee, sir, and Professor Pranam Dhar, sir, for enriching valuable insights in the National Finance Symposium 2021. I would like to thank our President, Professor Dr. Biswajeet Pattanayak, sir, our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Kalyan Sankar Ray, sir, our Pro-Vice Chancellor, Dr. Falgu Niranjana, madam, for guiding us to make this Finance Symposium 2021 possible. I also extend my thanks to all the faculty friends, our dear students, research scholars, management staffs, and technical team for their eminent support and cooperation. Thank you very much, and thank you all.
Okay. Hello, the inaugural session is coming to an end. Thank you to all.